For centuries, humanity had been known across the stars as the quiet ones. They built their colonies far from conflict, traded fairly, and helped rebuild the worlds broken by war. When the Galactic Union looked at Earth, they saw a young, soft species that valued peace too much to be dangerous. The others, older and stronger races, mocked them for it. Humans were tolerated, not respected. They were the species who smiled even when insulted. They were the diplomats who bowed even when humiliated. And so the galaxy laughed. It started with jokes in trade halls, then whispers in military academies. Soon human convoys were accidentally attacked. Their colonies were taxed unfairly, their scientists banned from research councils, and their fleets pushed to the edge of worthless sectors. Each time the humans complained, but never fought back. The Galactic Council watched, amused. Because humans were polite, patient, and peaceful. And what, they wondered, could such creatures possibly do against the great empires of the stars? Commander Ilara Vance of Earth's Outer Defense Fleet stood at the viewport of the orbital station Aegis Prime, her eyes cold and tired. Below her floated the world of Caldera 7, one of humanity's newest colonies, a lush green planet that had once been a proud example of coexistence. Now, it was ash and glass. 3 days ago, an alien fleet had burned it to the ground. Not because of war, not because of defense, but because a human freighter had entered restricted space by accident. 1 billion people. Gone. Ilara hadn't slept since the attack. Her voice trembled when she spoke to her officers, but her eyes never wavered. "Are the transmissions ready?" she asked quietly. Her comm officer nodded. "Yes, ma'am." The Galactic Union still hasn't issued any response. Ilara's jaw tightened. Of course they hadn't. The Velkari Dominion, one of the oldest and most arrogant species in the Union, had claimed responsibility. Their ambassador had even called it a necessary correction, and the rest of the galaxy had looked away. To them, humanity's patience was endless. To them, Earth's silence meant weakness, but silence, as Ilara knew, could be the sound before thunder. Far away, on Earth itself, the High Council of Humanity met in emergency session under the cold lights of Geneva Spire. The faces around the table were grim, scientists, generals and leaders from every surviving colony. The holoscreens showed the burned remains of Caldera 7, still glowing in the dark of space. President Aaron Holt stood at the head of the chamber. He had once believed in peace more than anyone. He had signed every treaty, endorsed every disarmament pact. But now, as he looked at the destruction, his hands trembled. "The Union will not punish them," he said bitterly. "They will send condolences, maybe sanctions. Nothing more." General Marcus Steele, commander of Earth's Defense Command, leaned forward. "Mr. President," he said, voice like gravel, "they think we're afraid to fight. That's why this keeps happening." Silence filled the room. Then from the shadows, Dr. Kira Lane, head of the Titan Research Division, spoke quietly. "Humanity has always been merciful, but mercy is not infinite." The words hung in the air like prophecy. Out among the stars, humanity's fleet still patrolled their borders, small, outdated, and underfunded. They had never fought a real galactic war, but within hidden vaults deep beneath Mars, secret programs had been running for decades. Silent projects, forgotten weapons, old fears reborn as quiet preparations. Humanity had been patient, but not blind. In the darkness of Titan's underground facility, 1,000 machines awakened. Massive war drones rose from their cradles, their cores glowing with ancient power. Ships that had been sealed since the early expansion years hummed back to life. AI systems, once too dangerous to use, came online, whispering to one another in digital silence. And somewhere, buried deep in old Earth code, a message activated, one meant for only a single moment in history. It read, "If they ever make us bleed, we make them remember why they feared the dark." 3 days later, the Velkari ambassador stood before the Galactic Council, boasting about his people's discipline and strength. He laughed when a representative of the Human Alliance requested justice. "Justice?" The Velkari sneered. "You humans are not a people of justice. You are beggars of peace. You do not command, you request." The chamber filled with laughter. But then the lights flickered. Every hollow screen in the hall turned to static. And for the first time in 1,000 years, The Council's security systems failed. When the image returned, it wasn't a delegate or diplomat. It was a human. Commander Alara Vance stood in full uniform, eyes burning with fury. Her voice was calm, but it carried through every speaker in the chamber and beyond, into every ship, every station, every colony. "This message is from the people of Earth," she said. "You have taken our colonies. You have killed our children. You laughed at our mercy. You mistook it for weakness." She paused. The silence was unbearable, but today, mercy ends. Across the galaxy, humanity moved as one. Silent fleets emerged from the black, old ships with new weapons, cloaked dreadnoughts and pulse cannons capable of tearing through capital hulls. They didn't declare war. They simply began. The first strike came at the Velkari stronghold of Orion's Gate, a fortress thought impregnable. Within 10 minutes, it was nothing but debris. No warning, no survivors. The galaxy froze. For the first time, every alien race stared in disbelief as humanity, a species they had mocked, showed what happened when patience ran dry. On the fringes of the galaxy, fleets vanished overnight. Trade routes went silent. Communication relays burned out one by one. It was as if the humans had become ghosts of vengeance, striking without mercy, without warning, without pause. In the shadowed war room aboard Aegis Prime, Ilara stood before a star map filled with red markers, each one an enemy fleet destroyed. Her second officer whispered, "They're terrified, ma'am. The Velkari, the Syndax, even the Arten. They've all gone silent." Ilara didn't smile. "This isn't victory," she said softly. "This is a reminder." She looked out the viewport, watching distant stars flicker like candles before a storm. "They forgot who we were," she murmured. "They forgot what it means to push a species that survived its own extinction." On a distant broadcast, the Galactic Union called for peace talks, but no reply came from Earth. Every alien world waited, holding its breath, terrified to move, terrified to speak, because for the first time in galactic history, humanity had stopped talking, and the galaxy knew what that meant. The galaxy had gone silent, not out of respect, but out of fear. In the days following the destruction of Orion's Gate, every major government, empire, and confederation across the stars tried to contact Earth. No answer came. No signals, no negotiations, no ambassadors. Just silence. A silence that felt like standing in the dark, knowing something was watching. In the deep void between sectors, the human fleet command operated under blackout. Every ship had its transponders off. Every transmission was encrypted beyond alien comprehension. From the bridge of the dreadnought Iron Requiem, Commander Alara Vance watched the holomap before her. Dozens of red marks, Velkari colonies, supply lines, shipyards as blinked one by one, then faded as human strike groups hit them with perfect precision. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Harris, turned toward her. 24 Velkari outposts destroyed in the last 72 hours, ma'am. No survivors reported. Ilara didn't celebrate. "Good," she said quietly. "But we don't stop there. We hit the Syndax next. They supplied the plasma cores for the bombardment of Caldera 7. Harris hesitated. "We don't even know how big their fleet is." Ilara's gaze was cold. "Then we find out. And when we do, we erase it." On the other side of the galaxy, the Velkari High Council sat in a panic. Their homeworld's atmosphere shimmered with defense grids, and their orbital ring was packed with ships, but none of them dared to leave orbit. Admiral Sarath Vel, commander of their navy, slammed his clawed hand on the war table. "This is impossible!" The humans do not possess the fleet strength to strike across 3 sectors simultaneously. A nervous officer responded, "Admiral, reports indicate they're using autonomous fleets, AI-guided. No biological crews." Sarath turned, his mandibles twitching in disbelief. "That's forbidden under Union law." The officer looked down. "They no longer care for laws, sir." Sarath's voice lowered to a growl. "Then we are dealing with a species that has abandoned mercy." Meanwhile, deep in the asteroid field known as the Grave Belt, the human fleet's secret base hummed with life. Rows of engineers worked silently under the glow of emergency lights, repairing ships and loading new weapons. Massive rail cannons were being fitted to carriers that once transported colonists. Earth had turned its hope into steel. In one of the dark hangars, Dr. Kira Lane stood beside a massive silver pod, her hands covered in grease and data tattoos glowing along her wrists. Her assistant whispered, "Ma'am, this weapon, it's unstable. If we activate it, it could collapse an entire sector." Kira didn't look up. "Good," she said coldly. "Let them know what fear feels like." Back on the Iron Requiem, Commander Alara received a transmission, a message that bypassed all security layers. She frowned. "Source? Unknown," her officer replied. "Origin traces back to the Galactic Council Corps." Alara motioned for it to play. The hologram flickered, revealing the face of Counselor Thayan, a tall insectoid being with trembling mandibles. "Commander Vance," the alien began, voice desperate. "This cycle of destruction must end. The galaxy cannot survive this chaos. Please, humanity must stand down." Alara's eyes narrowed. "Where was the Council when Caldera 7 burned?" Thayan faltered. We issued sanctions against the Velkari. We did what we could." "You watched," Alara said, her voice sharp as a blade. "You laughed when they called us weak. You profited from our patience, and now you're afraid of our anger." The alien's voice trembled. "You will destroy everything. Is this vengeance worth it?" Alara leaned forward. "This isn't vengeance," she said coldly. "This is balance." She cut the transmission. By the 4th week of humanity's retaliation, the Velkari Dominion ceased to exist. Their fleets were gone, their capital reduced to a silent crater orbiting a dying star. The other empires watched in disbelief. For the first time, the galaxy truly understood. Humans didn't conquer worlds. They ended them. The Syndax Technate, once allies of the Velkari, tried to intervene. They sent a warning to Earth, demanding the attack stop or face total Union reprisal. The response arrived 10 minutes later, in the form of a signal broadcast to every planet. "Humanity does not negotiate with those who stood by while our people burned." Then came the second wave. The Syndax homeworld orbited a blue-white star, surrounded by shimmering defense satellites and quantum shields. They believed themselves safe until the sky tore open. A dozen human warships emerged from slipspace, silent as shadows. The Iron Requiem led the charge, firing its rail cannons in a perfect synchronized arc. The Syndax orbital ring shattered like glass. Their capital city vanished in white fire. From orbit, the destruction looked almost beautiful, like a sunrise that never ended. Commander Alara watched the light fade, her reflection cold in the glass. Her officers stared in stunned silence. One finally whispered, "Ma'am." That was their homeworld. Alara's reply was soft but final. "Then it's done." News spread faster than light. On 100 alien worlds, children hid behind their parents as human fleets passed overhead. Merchants shuttered their ports. Governments erased their records of human dealings, terrified to be next. Everywhere, the same whispers echoed. "The humans have lost their mercy. The humans are coming. Hide your fleets. Hide your worlds." But not everyone celebrated humanity's wrath. On Mars, President Aaron Holt watched the reports with hollow eyes. Thousands of alien lives, civilians, scientists, children, gone in moments. The war had become something else now. He turned to General Steele. "How many more worlds, Marcus?" The general looked down. "Until they stop fearing us, sir." Holt sighed deeply. "They already fear us." "Then," Steele said darkly, "they'll remember why." In the shadows of deep space, Alara's ship intercepted a final transmission from the Union High Command. The message contained one sentence, written in panic: "We surrender." The bridge went quiet. Alara stood, walked to the viewport, and gazed at the broken stars beyond. For years, humanity had been the punching bag of the galaxy. Now the galaxy was on its knees, but there was no satisfaction in her eyes, only sorrow. Because she knew what came next. Power always hungers for more. And once you unleash wrath, it doesn't fade easily. In a distant nebula, one of the surviving alien fleets, a coalition of terrified species, met in secret. They called it the Coalition of Last Light. Their plan: to unite what remained of the galaxy's powers and strike Earth before it struck them. A grizzled alien captain slammed his claws against the table. "If we don't destroy them now, we'll never have a galaxy again." Another, a reptilian scholar, whispered, "You don't destroy a storm. You endure it. But the first captain snarled, then we die trying. Meanwhile, back on Aegis Prime, Ilara stood before a massive tactical screen glowing red with enemy signals. Harris looked at her. They're gathering, ma'am. The Coalition is forming fleets in the Orion Arm. Ilara gave a tired nod. Good, she said softly. Let them come. Her hand tightened on the console. Let them see what mercy truly protected them from. Outside the viewport, the stars shimmered. 1,000 human warships aligning in formation, engines burning like blue fire. For the first time in galactic history, the universe wasn't expanding. It was shrinking, collapsing under the weight of a single truth. Humanity had stopped forgiving. The galaxy was dying, not because of hunger or disease, but because of fear. Entire sectors had gone dark. Trade routes that once shimmered with life now drifted empty. Where human ships passed, no one followed. Where human fleets vanished, only silence remained. And somewhere in that silence, the surviving races gathered, desperate, trembling, and united by one thought. If we do not stop humanity now, there will be nothing left to save. They met on the ancient world of Vardis Prime, a cold planet whose skies were filled with dust and broken satellites. There, the leaders of 12 alien empires stood beneath the ruined hall of an old civilization, its ceilings cracked by forgotten wars. The Velkari were gone. The Syndax were ash. Now came the Xeran Compact, the Tyrell Alliance, the Drunkar clans, and others, all gathered under a new banner. The Coalition of Last Light. Their leader, High Marshal Kareth of the Xyrans, stood at the center, his silver armor cracked, his eyes burning with fear and pride. He raised a clawed hand. Brothers, sisters, whatever we are now, this is the end of the line. The humans will not stop. They will erase us one by one, unless we stand as one. A murmuring wave spread across the hall. The Tyrell delegate, a being of molten crystal, hissed through a translator. You speak as if unity will save us. They destroyed empires stronger than ours. What chance do we have? Kareth bared his teeth. The same chance we had when our worlds were young, to fight or die on our knees. In a corner of the hall, a small hologram shimmered to life. It was an image of Earth, blue, bright, and surrounded by a wall of human dreadnoughts. General Rhinus of the Drunkar clans spat in disgust. Look at it. A world once weak, now guarded by machines that even our ancestors would fear. Kareth stared at the image, his voice low. They call their main fleet the Silent Armada. No signal, no comms, not even a heat signature until it's too late. The molten Tyrell shivered. I saw the recordings. Ships appearing from the dark. Entire planets turning white before the light died. Do they even have souls left? Kareth didn't answer, because deep down, even he wasn't sure anymore. Far across the void, aboard the human flagship Iron Requiem, Commander Ilara Vance stood alone in her private quarters. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the engines and the distant whisper of crew activity. On her screen, reports flooded in. Fleets destroyed, worlds surrendered, empires begging for peace. And yet she felt no pride. Only weight. She tapped a small hollow on her desk. A picture appeared, her brother, smiling beside the oceans of Caldera 7 before it was turned to ash. Her hand trembled. This is for you, she whispered. But how much more will it take? A soft tone interrupted her. Her second officer's voice came through the intercom. Ma'am, long-range sensors detect multiple fleets forming in the Vardis sector. Thousands of ships. Ilara turned toward the viewport, where the stars reflected in her cold eyes. So they're finally uniting, she murmured. Good. Back on Vardis Prime, the Coalition's War Council finalized its desperate plan. Step 1. Draw the humans into open space, away from their stealth advantage. Step 2. Unleash every weapon the galaxy had ever banned. Black hole bombs, quantum disruptors, planet-cracking torpedoes. Weapons forbidden for centuries. Humanity showed no mercy, said Kareth. Now we must forget mercy too. The council members nodded. Some reluctantly, others with grim acceptance. Then, an old alien stepped forward, the elder scholar Vitar, one of the last of the Lumari, a species known for wisdom rather than war. His voice echoed softly through the chamber. Do you not see? You do not fight men anymore. You fight the echo of what you made them. Kareth frowned. Old one, your riddles mean nothing here. Vitar's luminous eyes dimmed. They begged for peace. We mocked them. They asked for justice. We denied them. And now they bring the justice of silence. He turned away. Even if you win, you will not survive what comes after. Aboard the Iron Requiem, preparations began for the next strike. Dr. Kira Lane supervised the loading of a new weapon, Project Nemesis, a core so powerful it could fracture space itself. Her assistant looked uneasy. Ma'am, are we really going to use it? It could destroy an entire star system. Kira's eyes were hollow. Do you remember Caldera 7? Yes. Then you already know the answer. The next cycle, the stars around Vardis began to flicker. Thousands of alien ships waited in orbit. Vast carriers, gunships, and planetary shields locked together like a wall of steel. High Marshal Kareth stood on the bridge of his flagship. Spear of Dawn. Today, he declared, we show the humans that the galaxy still fights back. His voice echoed through every channel. Let this be remembered as the day we faced our nightmares. The Coalition fleet roared to life, and then, from the darkness beyond the nebula, the humans arrived. No grand announcement, no warning, just the cold ripple of slip space and then silence. The first human ship emerged, black as night, reflecting no light, no heat. Then 10 more, then 100, then the sky filled with them. The battle began before the Coalition even realized it. Invisible rail rounds tore through their outer defense lines. Ships exploded before their sensors could lock on. The humans had turned space into a graveyard. Precision, discipline, and fury all in one. Kareth shouted orders. Fire everything! Don't let them breach the shield wall. Thousands of plasma beams crossed the void, lighting up the nebula like a burning sea. Several human ships fell, but for each one destroyed, 5 more appeared. Inside the chaos, Commander Alara's voice rang through the fleet channels. Target their command vessels. No survivors. Her ship glided forward, railguns blazing. The Iron Requiem punched through the Coalition line like a spear through paper. Hours passed. The space around Vardis became an ocean of fire. Ships screamed in agony, hulls tearing, engines burning out. The Coalition fought with everything they had, but humanity didn't fight for victory. They fought for memory. On the surface of Vardis Prime, the elder Vitar watched from the temple steps as debris rained from the sky. He closed his eyes. So this, he whispered, is what it means when mercy dies. Moments later, a beam from orbit turned the temple to dust. By the end of the battle, only fragments of the Coalition fleet remained. Kareth's flagship drifted broken and powerless. On his cracked bridge, he stared at the view. Thousands of human ships surrounding what was left of his armada. A communication request blinked on his console. He hesitated, then accepted. Ilara Vance appeared on the holo, calm, unflinching. Kareth bared his fangs. Monster! Ilara's voice was quiet. You made us this. Kareth's mandibles trembled. If you destroy us all, who will you rule? Ilara's eyes darkened. We never wanted to rule. She looked past him at the dying planet. We wanted peace. You gave us war. Now we give it back. The transmission ended. A single human torpedo struck Kareth's ship. The Spear of Dawn disintegrated into light. Hours later, the smoke cleared. Vardis Prime was gone. The Coalition of Last Light was no more. Across the stars, messages poured into Earth. Words of surrender, of fear, of silence. But on board the Iron Requiem, no one celebrated. Ilara stood at the viewport, her reflection ghostly. Her officer approached softly. Ma'am, the galaxy is quiet again. She didn't look away from the stars. For how long? She asked, because deep inside she knew. Mercy, once lost, is never easily found again. And somewhere in the dark corners of space, other eyes were watching. Junit, waiting, learning. Because the galaxy had learned one lesson too late. You can mock humanity for centuries. But the day they stop forgiving, the universe will never laugh again. The war was over, but peace never came. Across the stars, the fires of destruction still burned, drifting wreckage. Silent worlds and empty stations that once sang with life. The Coalition of Last Light had fallen, and humanity now stood alone among the ruins of a galaxy that once feared them. No one dared to speak against Earth. No one dared to speak at all. The galaxy had gone quiet. Too quiet. Aboard the flagship Iron Requiem, Commander Alara Vance walked through the long corridors of steel and silence. The ship was alive, humming with power, engines beating like a heart that refused to rest more, but its crew felt empty. They had won, but no one celebrated. Alara paused near the observation deck where a group of cadets stood, staring out at the shattered remains of Vardis Prime. One of them, a young lieutenant, turned as she entered. "Ma'am," he asked carefully, "was it worth it?" Her eyes remained fixed on the burning planet. "Ask me that when the fires stop." The lieutenant nodded and walked away, leaving her alone with the stars. In Earth's orbit, the Council of Command gathered. Admirals, scientists, and politicians sat in a dark chamber, surrounded by holograms of destroyed alien worlds. Admiral Hayden Locke stood before them, his uniform still marked with dust from the front lines. He spoke firmly, but there was no pride in his tone. "The coalition is gone. Every major power that stood against us has fallen. Their fleets are dust. Their worlds are silent." A councilwoman leaned forward. "Then it's done. Humanity is finally safe." Hayden's eyes narrowed. "Safe, perhaps? But something isn't right." He turned to the screen behind him. It showed faint static, the kind that came from deep space transmissions. These signals started hours after the last battle. They're not from any known source. No language, no pattern, no coordinates. Could it be survivors? Someone asked. Hayden shook his head. "No, it's not the coalition. It's something deeper, something older." The room fell into silence. For the first time since the war began, the humans felt watched. Far beyond the known systems, in the shadow of a dead sun, the wreckage of the alien fleets floated like frozen ghosts. Among the twisted metal, faint lights flickered. Machines reactivating, fragments of signals whispering across the void. One of the broken ships, a Zyran battleship split in half, suddenly powered up. Its data core came online, replaying fragments of battles, screams, and then a single human voice repeating through static, "No mercy! No mercy!" And beneath that echo, something else replied, a deeper voice, not human, not alien, a whisper that carried through the debris. "They have awakened the chain." 3 days later, Dr. Kira Lane was summoned to the Iron Requiem. She entered Alara's command chamber carrying a tablet full of readings. Her face was pale. "Commander, we have a problem." Alara looked up from the star charts. "Define problem." Kira placed the tablet on the table. "These signals Admiral Locke mentioned, we've triangulated them. They're not transmissions. They're pulses. Energy waves coming from multiple dead systems, from the coalition worlds." "Yes, from beneath them," Alara frowned. "Explain." Kira took a breath. Every major alien civilization had something hidden beneath their planets. Ancient cores, sealed deep underground. The energy signatures matched them perfectly. Someone or something just activated them. The news spread fast. Across the human fleets, whispers turned into fear. For years, the other species had spoken of the old ones, beings that had ruled the galaxy before even the first alien empire was born. Humanity had always dismissed them as myths, but now the myth was stirring. On the 5th day, the first incident occurred. A patrol ship, Horizon 12, vanished while scanning the ruins of Drakarv, a former coalition stronghold. When a rescue team arrived, they found the ship drifting, the crew gone. The walls marked with strange circular symbols that glowed faintly in the dark. The log files ended with a single voice entry from the captain. "We thought the war was over." But it was only the door opening. On the Iron Requiem, Alara convened her senior staff. Dr. Kira Lane, Admiral Locke, and a few others joined her in the strategy hall. Alara stood beside a rotating hologram of the galaxy. Lines of red light pulsed across it, the locations of the mysterious signals. "They're spreading," she said quietly. "One by one, the old planets are waking." Admiral Locke clenched his fists. "I warned the Council. We broke the balance. The coalition wasn't protecting the galaxy from us. They were holding something back." Kira looked up from her screen. "Then we need to find out what it is before it finds us." Ilara's voice hardened. "Prepare the fleet. We're going back to Drakar 4. The journey took 6 days. As the human ships entered the Drakar system, they were met with silence. No signals, no movement. The planet below looked burned and lifeless, just like the others. But sensors detected something beneath the surface. A structure, massive, ancient, buried deep under the crust. Alara gave the order. Deploy landing teams. Dropships descended through the black clouds, cutting through lightning storms until they reached a field of broken stone. The air was heavy with static. In the distance, they saw it. A massive metallic gate half buried in the ash. It pulsed with faint golden light. Captain Doran of the landing team approached it carefully. "Looks like a vault," he said through comms. "Markings match no known language. Can you open it?" Alara asked from orbit. Doran hesitated. "There's an energy signature inside. It's..." Waiting? A low vibration filled the air. The gate began to open, slowly, grinding like stone against time. A deep rhythmic sound echoed from within like the beating of a giant heart. Then a voice, not spoken but felt, spread through every comm channel. "The war was never yours. You were only the spark." The sound cut through every headset, every ship, every system. Crew members screamed as their visors flickered, showing images of burning stars, ancient ruins, and symbols that seemed to twist reality itself. On the bridge of the Iron Requiem, systems went haywire. Ilara grabbed the console, her knuckles white. "Shut it down! Block the signal!" Kira's voice broke through the static. "It's not a transmission. It's a memory echo." "Whose memory?" Kira's face turned pale. Not human, not alien, something older. The ship trembled. Outside, the stars flickered like dying candles, and then as suddenly as it began, the signal stopped. The gate on Drakkar 4 sealed itself again. Hours later, silence filled the command deck. Ilara looked around at her exhausted crew. "What did we just awaken?" she asked quietly. Kira shook her head. "Something that remembers the first war. The one before us, before them. A war that erased even the gods." Admiral Locke turned toward the viewport. "And now it knows we're here." That night, as the Iron Requiem drifted through the quiet stars, strange symbols began to appear on the outer hull, the same glowing circles found on the dead ship Horizon 12. And somewhere, beyond the edge of the galaxy, a deep hum began to rise again. Low, endless, like something vast and ancient was breathing, because the galaxy had thought the fire was gone. But those were only the echoes of fire, warning that the real inferno was about to begin. The stars were no longer silent. Across the black sea of space, faint signals began to rise, whispers from worlds long dead. It was as if the galaxy itself was exhaling after centuries of holding its breath. And within that exhale, something ancient was moving. On board the Iron Requiem, Commander Alara Vance stood before the main viewport, watching the shimmer of deep space distortion. The light bent unnaturally, forming strange spirals that danced and dissolved into darkness. Dr. Kira Lane rushed into the room, her tablet glowing with data. "Commander, the energy patterns we detected from Drakkar 4, they've spread to 7 more systems." Ilara didn't look away from the stars. "How fast?" "Faster than light," Kira said quietly. "They're jumping, like thought traveling across memory. It's not physical. It's something else." "Then whatever we woke up," Ilara whispered, "it's awake everywhere now." In the depths of the galaxy's forgotten rim, near the remains of Zyran space, a new shape began to form, vast, shadowed, like a wound opening in reality. Out of that rift, a structure emerged. Not a ship, not a station, but something older, darker, alive. It moved like a living city, its surface shifting with patterns of light and geometry that no human eye could truly understand. It pulsed with a rhythm that made nearby human ships tremble, not from force, but from fear. The first contact came from a small recon vessel, Vigilant Dawn. Its captain, Marcus Wren, transmitted what would become one of the most terrifying recordings in human history. "Command, this is Vigilant Dawn. We have visual. It's massive, thousands of kilometers across. No, more. The surface is changing, forming shapes, almost like faces. Wait, something's moving inside it." Oh God, they're looking at us. They're looking back. The transmission cut out. No explosion, no warning, just silence. Back on the Iron Requiem, Ilara listened to the playback in complete stillness. When the last words echoed through the chamber, she turned to Kira. Did we get any readings before it disappeared? Kira nodded shakily. Yes. The energy signature matches the cores under every dead world. The same pattern, the same heartbeat. Ilara clenched her jaw. Then we're not dealing with ancient weapons. We're dealing with their creators. The Council of Command convened again. This time, their faces were pale, eyes heavy with fear. Admiral Hayden Locke stood at the center of the table, projecting the image of the colossal moving structure. This is what we're up against, he said flatly. We don't know what it wants, how it thinks, or if it even understands us. But it's active in at least 4 sectors, and its presence alone is disrupting our systems. A general slammed his fist on the table. Then we strike first. Humanity has faced extinction before and survived. Locke glared. You can't fight something that's not bound by time or physics. You can't destroy an idea older than creation. The room went silent. Finally, Ilara's voice broke through. What if it's not here to destroy? What if it's here to reclaim? On Earth, chaos began to spread. Mass power outages, satellites blinking out of orbit. Every digital screen began showing strange circular patterns for brief seconds, always the same message, repeating in unknown symbols. But deep AI translation systems caught fragments of meaning. We made you from the ashes of our fall. You carry our flame. The flame has burned too bright. Governments panicked. The public demanded answers. And for the first time, humanity realized they were not the youngest race in the stars. They were the inheritance of something far greater and far more dangerous. Meanwhile, on the Iron Requiem, Dr. Kira finally made a breakthrough. Her voice shook as she spoke. Commander, these energy cores under alien worlds weren't prisons. They were anchors. They held the remnants of the creators, the forgotten ones, who shaped the first civilizations. Ilara frowned. Anchors? Yes. They spread their essence across worlds so they could never truly die. And when we unleashed our wars, when we burned those planets, we broke the locks. Admiral Locke leaned forward. So humanity didn't just destroy alien empires. We released their gods, Kira nodded. And now they're coming back to finish what they started eons ago. As human fleets scrambled to fortify colonies, strange phenomena erupted across space. Planets whispering through radio waves in human voices. Stars dimming in patterns that formed geometric languages. Crew members dreaming of alien cities they had never seen. Every sign pointed to one truth. The forgotten were rewriting reality itself. 3 weeks later, the Iron Requiem arrived. The Voss Expanse, where sensors had detected another awakening core. But this time, something was different. The energy readings weren't hostile. They were familiar. Ilara ordered a landing team to investigate. They descended to the surface of Voss 9, a barren world of glass and dust. At its center stood a single obsidian spire, smooth, unbroken, glowing with faint blue light. When they approached, the ground trembled. The spire split open and a projection emerged. Not solid, not gas. A being made of light, shifting between humanoid and alien forms. It spoke, and its voice echoed inside their minds. Children. Flame, why do you run from your makers? Ilara raised her weapon instinctively. Who are you? We are what you call the forgotten. We are memory given shape. We are the architects of thought, the dreamers of flesh. Kira stepped forward, trembling. Why now? Why return after all this time? Because you screamed loud enough to wake us. The being's voice grew heavier, resonant, ancient. When your species lost mercy, the universe tilted. The balance we set was broken. You are our creation. But you have become something else, something dangerous. Ilara's voice was calm but defiant. We defended ourselves. We fought to survive. Yes, the being replied. And in doing so, you learned what even gods feared, the power to decide who deserves to live. Suddenly, the sky above Vos 9 began to crack with light. A massive shadow fell across the horizon, the living city, the same one that had consumed the vigilant dawn. The ground shook as gravity itself bent under its presence. The being of light turned to face it. They have come, the others who reject you. They wish to unmake what we made. Ilara looked up in horror. You mean there's more of you? Not all forgotten agree with our path. Some see humanity as error, a corruption. They will cleanse the stars. And what about you? Kira asked. The being's voice softened. We remember what you are, a spark of our own will and our greatest sin. If you wish to survive, you must fight not as gods, but as humans. The light flickered, and the being began to fade. Go to the world you call Sol. Protect your home. That is where the end will begin. As the being vanished, the sky erupted with fire. Massive tendrils of energy reached from the void, wrapping around the spire, tearing it apart. Ilara shouted through comms, All units! Retreat! Back to orbit now! The dropships launched just as the surface exploded, sending waves of molten glass into the air. From orbit, the crew watched as the entire planet fractured, collapsing inward like a dying heart. And then, from the black rift that replaced it, a voice echoed across every human channel. The children have forgotten their makers. The cycle must reset. Back aboard the Iron Requiem, Ilara turned to Admiral Locke. Set a course for Sol. If this ends anywhere, it'll end where it all began. Locke nodded. And if they reach Earth before us? Ilara looked at the stars, her face cold and determined. Then the galaxy will learn again why every alien fears the day humanity loses its mercy. The homeworld had never looked so fragile. From orbit, Earth was a blue jewel adrift in a sea of darkness, silent, small, and surrounded by gathering storms of fire. The Iron Requiem and the remaining human fleet drifted in formation, their hulls scarred, their weapons armed. Every sensor pointed toward the outer edges of the solar system, where they were coming from. Commander Ilara Vance stood on the bridge, staring at the tactical display. Hundreds of red markers pulsed across it, slowly advancing from the void beyond Neptune. Each one was the size of a moon. Each one was alive. Dr. Kira Lane whispered, They're not ships, they're beings, moving as one mind. Ilara's jaw tightened. Then we aim for the mind. Admiral Hayden Locke stepped forward, his expression like stone. Fleet Command confirms evacuation routes. Mars colonies are empty. Luna bases are sealed. Earth is ready as it can be. Ilara nodded. Then let's make our stand. Down below, on the surface of Earth, every city glowed under emergency lights. Defense cannons lined the skies. Orbital arrays powered up. Billions watched the heavens, united by the same fear and the same defiance. For the first time in history, humanity wasn't divided. There were no nations anymore. Only Earth. Far beyond Pluto, the darkness began to shift. The stars themselves seemed to bend, pulled inward by something vast and unnatural. And then it appeared, a colossal rift, blacker than space, burning with threads of white light, tore through the void. Out of it came the first of the forgotten. They looked like living monuments, structures of light and metal, fluid yet eternal. Their forms constantly changed, as if struggling to remember what shape they once had. A deep voice echoed through every human comm channel. The cycle must end. The flame must be returned to the stars. The human fleets opened fire. Thousands of railguns and plasma batteries roared, filling the void with streaks of energy. The impact lit up the darkness. But when the light faded, the forgotten still moved forward. They didn't even flinch. Admiral Locke slammed his fist down. Concentrate all fire on the nearest target. Burn it down! The flagship's cannons fired in rhythm, focusing on one of the beings. For the first time, the creature hesitated, its outer shell cracking like glass. Then, to everyone's horror, it screamed. The sound wasn't heard through comms. It was felt in the mind. Every human aboard the fleet clutched their heads as the voice thundered inside them. You dare strike your makers? Ilara forced her eyes open through the pain. Keep firing. The sky above Earth turned crimson as energy waves tore through the atmosphere. Cities trembled, oceans boiled, and mountains cracked. But humanity didn't run. All over the world, soldiers, engineers, and civilians watched the battle play out in the night sky. They knew what was coming. They knew the end was near. And still they stood, because mercy was no longer an option. Inside the Iron Requiem, Dr. Kira worked frantically. "I think I found something," she shouted. "The energy they use, it's bound by resonance. If we can invert the pulse frequency, we might disrupt their connection." Ilara turned. "You're saying we can break their hive mind?" "Yes, but it'll need a massive charge. We'd have to overload the ship's reactor." Locke's eyes hardened. "That would destroy the Requiem." Ilara didn't hesitate. "Then we do it." The human fleets began to fall back, forming a defensive line between Mars and Earth. One by one, ships vanished into fire, swallowed by beams of impossible light. But every fallen ship bought seconds, precious seconds. Seconds for Kira to finish her work. Minutes later, the Iron Requiem's core chamber glowed with power. Energy readings spiked off the charts. Kira stood by the console, her hands shaking. "Once we trigger this, there's no turning back. We'll burn out everything within 1,000 kilometers." Ilara placed a hand on her shoulder. "If it saves Earth, it's worth it." Suddenly, alarms blared across the bridge. One of the Forgotten had broken through the defense line. It was heading straight for Earth. Its body stretched like liquid metal, forming claws of energy that reached toward the blue planet. Its voice filled the void. "The flame belongs to us." Admiral Locke barked, "Target lock on my mark. Requiem, prepare to fire." Ilara took a deep breath. "Kira, now!" The reactor flared. A surge of pure energy burst from the Iron Requiem, spreading through space like a shockwave of light. Every human ship transmitted the same signal, amplifying it, multiplying it. The pulse spread across the battlefield. For a moment, the Forgotten froze. Their perfect synchronization shattered. Their forms flickered and twisted as the hive link broke apart. Admiral Locke's voice thundered. "All ships, concentrate fire!" The fleet unleashed everything. Thousands of railguns and torpedoes hit their mark. The nearest Forgotten being exploded, fragments scattering across the stars. Humanity had drawn blood, but victory came with a price. The energy backlash from the reactor surge tore through the Requiem systems. Panels exploded, fires erupted, and alarms screamed. Kira fell to her knees, coughing through the smoke. "Ilara!" Locke shouted. "The ship's reactor is collapsing. We need to evacuate." Ilara shook her head. "If we leave, the pulse dies. And then they win." She looked at Kira. "Finish it. Amplify the resonance through the main array." "You can do it." Kira's voice trembled. "What about you?" Ilara smiled faintly. "Someone has to light the last flame." The Iron Requiem turned toward the largest of the Forgotten. Its surface rippled, thousands of eyes opening across its shifting body. Ilara activated the manual control and whispered, "Earth." "This is for you." She pushed the throttle. The Requiem's engine screamed, flames bursting from its wings as it accelerated straight into the creature. Inside, the reactor went critical. The light grew brighter and then silence. The explosion consumed everything. A star was born in the darkness, bright enough to be seen from the surface of Earth. The energy wave spread across the system, tearing through the Forgotten fleet, disrupting their forms. The survivors turned and retreated into the void, their colossal shapes dissolving like shadows at dawn. When the light faded, only debris remained. The Iron Requiem was gone, but so were the invaders. Hours later, Admiral Locke stood aboard a rescue frigate, watching the ashes of battle drift across the void. Kira sat beside him, silent, tears streaking her face. "She did it," Locke said softly. "She stopped them." Kira nodded. "But at what cost?" Locke turned toward Earth, glowing faintly below. "At the cost humanity always pays. Everything." On Earth, as dawn rose over the shattered world, people emerged from bunkers and shelters. They looked up at the sky, at the fading traces of the battle, and for the first time in centuries, they saw peace. The galaxy would remember that light for eons. The day when humanity burned brighter than gods. The day when mercy ended and survival began. The war was over. The stars were quiet again, but the silence did not feel like peace. Earth hung in the void, cracked, bruised, but alive. Its orbit was filled with debris, broken ships, torn metal, and fragments of once living gods. Every piece floated like frozen tears, glimmering in the light of a sun that refused to die. In that stillness, humanity began to rebuild. 3 months after the battle, Admiral Hayden Locke stood on the balcony of the rebuilt United Earth Command Tower, overlooking the ruins of what was once London. The city was rising again, piece by piece. Children played in the streets, engineers welded new towers, and farmers planted in the fields where craters once smoked. He smiled faintly. "Humans," he whispered. "We just keep going." Behind him, Dr. Kira Lane entered. Her face was thinner now, her eyes still haunted. "Admiral," she said softly, "we received a signal." Locke turned. "From where?" Kira hesitated. "From the wreck field, near the edge of Mars' orbit." They walked into the command center. Technicians surrounded a holographic display showing a faint blue light blinking among the debris. "It's repeating every 7 minutes," Kira explained. "The pattern matches the Iron Requiem's quantum signature." The room went silent. That ship, Alara's ship, had vanished in the final explosion. Locke stepped closer. "Are you saying she's alive?" Kira shook her head slowly. "Not alive, maybe, but something of her remains." Hours later, a salvage vessel launched from orbit. Its name was Hope's Edge. Locke and Kira were aboard, their faces lit by the dim glow of the cockpit. As the ship approached the wreck field, they saw the remains of countless vessels, both human and alien. Metal bones of giants, floating graves of heroes, and in the middle of that silent sea, a single light pulsed. The Hope's Edge drew closer. The sensors confirmed it. The pulse came from a fractured core module, a piece of the Iron Requiem's bridge, half melted, half frozen, still whispering through the void. Kira reached out toward the console. "It's transmitting data." A faint voice played through the static. "This is Commander Alara Vance. If you are hearing this, then we did it. The enemy is gone, but I saw something in the light before the end. They were not gods. They were prisoners, bound to something older." The voice faded, then returned weaker. "Whatever created them, it's still out there, watching, waiting. Humanity must be ready. Because mercy is not the same as weakness." And then, silence. Kira covered her mouth, tears falling. Locke stared at the console, his eyes hardening. "Ilara died saving us," he said. "And now she warns us. We can't ignore it." The data they recovered from the Requiem's remains contained coordinates, deep in the Perseus arm, far beyond known space. Something there had given birth to the forgotten, something ancient. Locke called an emergency session of the United Earth Council. Representatives from Mars, Luna, Titan, and even the Freebelt colonies attended via hologram. For the first time, humanity truly stood as one species, not scattered factions. "The signal from the Iron Requiem," Locke said, addressing them, "proves one thing. The war wasn't the end. It was a test." A murmur spread through the council. Kira stepped forward. Admiral Vance saw something in her final moments. A presence behind the enemy. "If we wait for it to come again, we'll die unprepared. We must go to it first." The council chamber fell silent. Then a Martian general spoke. "You're suggesting we take the fight beyond the galaxy?" "Yes," Locke said calmly, "before it reaches us again." And so began Project Ascension, humanity's boldest dream. To build ships that could cross the dark between galaxies. To seek the source of the threat before it could ever return. 10 years passed. The scars of war had faded into monuments. Children grew up under new skies, learning about the day Earth burned and the day it rose again. The fleets had grown, faster, stronger, united under one flag. The lead ship of the new fleet was named the Vance, in honor of the woman who had lit the last flame of Sul. At its heart burned a fragment of the Iron Requiem's reactor. Stabilized, glowing like a heartbeat, Dr. Kira Lane, now older, stood aboard the Vance as it prepared for launch. Beside her stood Admiral Locke, his hair gray, his eyes proud. "Funny," she said softly. 10 years ago I thought we'd never leave the solar system again." Locke smiled faintly. 10 years ago I thought we'd never survive it." The ship lifted from the lunar docks, engines humming like thunder. Billions watched from Earth, from Mars, from every colony humanity had built. As the ship cleared orbit, a single transmission echoed across every human frequency, a message written by Locke and Kira together. We are the children of Sul. We are born from ash, forged in defiance and guided by memory. The stars once feared the day we lost our mercy. Let them remember why. As the fleet vanished into the dark beyond the galaxy, a faint shimmer rippled across the stars, like a whisper of something vast stirring in the distance. Somewhere far beyond known space, ancient eyes opened once again. They watched the small, defiant lights leaving their home star and whispered across the void, "The flame moves." The cycle begins anew. Back on Earth, in the quiet of an old memorial garden, a small statue stood alone. It was the likeness of Commander Alara Vance, her hand reaching toward the stars. Beneath it, a single engraving read, "She burned so the stars would remember us." And above, as night fell, the stars shimmered softly, as if they did.